Did you know that Ohio actually allows you to opt out of their auto insurance policy? Well, sort of. In this video, I'm going to discuss some of the different things that Ohio allows you to do. This is going to kind of be the 101 or the basic of Ohio insurance. So let's start off at the coverages that Ohio requires that you absolutely have to have this, or you cannot purchase insurance with them. So if you're in a car accident, you have to have bodily injury of at least $25,000 per person, up to $50,000 per accident. So if you hit someone's car, it has to cover at least $25,000. So not bad. It's a good starting place. If you hit someone's car that's a nice BMW and it's $40,000, then you're out $15,000. You have to out-pocket that yourself. That's it. That's all Ohio requires. $25,50, property damage $25,000. Now the way to opt out, which most companies don't typically recommend or even dig into, because in this situation you're kind of self-insuring yourself. So you have to get what's called a bond of $30,000. I'm not going to go into that in this video because I have yet in 9 years to ever see anyone do it. It's an option. It's there. It has to be approved by the DMV, has to be paperwork and all that stuff. And so if you have money and you want to take your own risk and say, if I hit a $50,000 car, or if I injure someone for $400,000, I have this bond for $30,000. I'm gonna self-insure myself technically. So a few things you should know with Ohio insurance is they are one of the lowest costs in the states out of the whole U.S. So when you're purchasing insurance, I think they're in the bottom 5 as far as the least expensive insurance policies. They're averaging roughly $500 to $600 per year at this current time. A lot of the information I'm going to leave for you. I'm going to put some links of everything I talk about. If you guys want to get quotes from different companies or want to see that, I'm going to put that down in the description below as well. The reason I'm not going to put them in the video is because I don't want to say one company over another, mainly because the fact that if that company changes and you're watching this video 7, 8 months, 9 months, 10 months from now, that it's going to change. It could be that, you know, this company A is the best one today, the cheapest one, the best coverage, the best service, but who's not to say that in a year they've raised their rates, now they're the highest one, their service went down because people are complaining, they're not taking care of the customers, so you got to be careful of who you're going with from time to time. So I'll continuously try to update those links so that you guys do get to see like what options you do have. I personally work for a company that does insure Ohio, and it's kind of cool because I was looking in these top 5 and one of the companies that I represent is in there. Now these videos aren't for me to sell you guys insurance, but I may put my link down there as well, so if you guys do want a quote from me, I'll put that down there too. But keep in mind, these videos were just more so meant for you guys to get the knowledge that you need to make better decisions about your insurance. So if you're caught in Ohio driving without insurance, this is a big no-no. And it's really funny because I'll link the description of the official page that I found, the Ohio government website, that they actually say in this article. I don't have it memorized, but I'm gonna try to quote it correctly. So if you're caught without insurance, get used to walking is what they say. So the first occurrence you're gonna have is you're gonna have a 90-day suspension. So they'll take your license away and you've got 90 days of nothing. On top of that, when you renew it, you're going to have a fee, which is typically $100 for the first offense, and I think it's $300 for the second, $500 for the third. I mean, it could change, but that's typically as you progress. The first offense is 90 days. The second offense is up to a year of no license, and then the third offense and up is usually 5 years or more without your license. In the future, I don't think they actually talk about jail time in it, so I don't think that's really an issue. Although, who knows? Maybe that is a law that they have. I hope you guys aren't in that situation. If so, I don't think these videos are going to help you very much. I'm sorry. So you're going to have court costs if you're caught without insurance. You're going to have what's called an SR-22, which is fairly expensive. It's like proving that you have insurance constantly for 3 to 5 years, depending on the time they give you. So you're going to have to pay a fee to the insurance company to file a form with the state to constantly check to make sure that you have insurance. One of the really interesting things that I read about Ohio is they do kind of a random check. So it's like, oh, well, they won't catch me. Oh, they will. So what they do is 1 out of every 4,500-ish people, every so often they're going to mail you a request for insurance for a specific time. So they're going to be like, oh, we knew you said you had insurance for these last 6 years. We're going to go back 30 days. Send us your proof of insurance. If you had it, you're great. You mail it in, you're done. If you didn't have it, SR22, you're on suspension. You're going to have to pretty much ride with your best buddy and hope that they're going to drive you around for 90 days, plan on paying a few $100s in fees, and then do an SR22. So now you've got to constantly prove that you have insurance. You're a higher risk because you risked going without insurance, so you're risking a lot. So now your insurance rates are going to go up. So that average $500 to $600 a year, that's going to be closer to the higher range. Keep in mind, if you have multiple cars, if you have better coverages, you've got more to lose, you need to insure more, you're not going to be in that low or average range. You're going to be the above average. So even though you may have perfect credit, you may live in a really good low risk area, the cars that you drive and your credit and your age and sex and all that stuff is going to be taken into consideration. And yes, your rates could be higher than average or lower than average. It just really depends on where you're at. So one interesting piece about Ohio insurance is the Medpay. So you don't have to carry medical, period. So what that means is, well, wait a minute, I've got this bodily injury coverage. That's not for you. That's if you hit someone else. So if you injure somebody, that car over there that I hit, he has a broken arm, mine will cover the 100,000 that I cover up to 300,000. But what about me? My buddy next to me's hurt. He doesn't have insurance. What do I do next? That's where Medpay comes in. You can do like 5,000, 10,000, 15,000. It goes higher. There is a limit because at some point you might as well just buy your own health insurance because the cost would just raise up to the point where it's not worth it. So there are limits. But typically in most policies that I've written in the past, in Ohio, you're going to get at least 5,000 to 10,000 medical for just a little bit. So if someone does get hurt, the unfortunate part is if you're in a major accident and you don't have your own medical, then that can be a really big issue. So kind of think of that ahead of time, whether it's worth getting your own medical or whether you should try to max it out through your car insurance. Now the medical's per person. So if I do 5,000 per person, that's 5,000 for me, 5,000 for my passenger, 5,000 for each people in the back seat. So they're covered up to that amount depending on what the medical injury is. So why is Ohio so inexpensive? Well, there's a few reasons. One, they just don't have a lot of claims. They don't have a lot of accidents. They're only 15% uninsured motorist. So that's not really a big issue in your state. Not to say that you shouldn't carry the uninsured motorist, because if someone's traveling through or if someone doesn't have insurance, there's still a 15% chance out of 100 people you hit, there's 15 out there that don't have insurance. So you may want to cover that uninsured motorist, which is also a medical for you and people in your car if you get hit by someone who has no insurance. Or let's pretend they have the state minimums, the 2550, right? And you're carrying the 100, 300, or 250, 500, and they have less than you. So that's underinsured motorists. You want to cover the gap between those. So that way you're not stuck with a medical bill and having to sue him to try to cover the medical bill. Because if he doesn't have money, it may take 20, 30 years for you to get that money back. They're going to take 20 to 30% of his income or her income. But at the end of the day, you need the money today. You need to have it paid. You don't want to have to fight all these medical bills. Now your credit's going down. It's just a mess. And I know a lot of people out there are going to be, oh, well, I don't understand. I don't get it. That's not fair. It's not my fault. Well, that's what insurance is for. It's there to protect yourself. It's meant to be, I don't feel safe enough where if this guy hits me, they're going to have enough coverage to cover my family. So I'm going to pay a small premium for that situation. The great thing about this state in Ohio is that not at fault accidents don't typically go against you. So in a lot of other states, even we'll use Texas for an example. Typically if you have an accident, even if it wasn't your fault, there's a premium raised because of that. In Ohio, that's not the case. And that's kind of the way I think most of them should be. I don't know why they really kind of determine that between states. I personally think if it's not your fault, I don't understand why your insurance would go up. The reason I say typically is because if you have multiple occurrences, then they can raise the rate. So if you have 2 or more not at fault accidents, you can see the rate go up in Ohio just because of those situations. So you got to kind of keep that in mind. Sure, it's not going to go up for the first one. It may go up for the second one. However, just to kind of correct myself there, is some companies, they know this and they're not being tricky, but what they're doing is they give the good drivers an extra little discount for having nothing. No tickets, no accidents, no nothing. And so what could happen is if you're with one of those companies and you do get that claim, it's not your fault. You have to file it because that's going to pay for your car, right? And so you file that claim, they're going to take that discount back And so that could raise your rate as well, just because you're losing that claims-free discount. So in this same situation, it's not just his or her fault or that person's fault, my fault. Ohio is what's called a split fault state. I don't know if that's a legal term, that's what I'm calling it. So it can be a percentage. It could be that you were backing up, but I was going 60 miles an hour and you obviously couldn't see me and I hit you, right? Who's going to determine that? The police officer and a judge will determine that. They're going to say, well, you were backing up. In most states, that's 100% at fault, right? You're in reverse. But this state, they could say, well, we understand that, but he was flying down the road, so we're going to put you 70% at fault and him 30% at fault. And that can tweak the amount of risk that the insurance companies decide is or isn't worth rating for. Typically when it's 50% or lower of not at fault, or the opposite, 51% or higher is at fault, they're usually not going to count the below 50%, and they'll usually count the above 51%, which is pretty fair, I think. That way they're kind of rating people correctly, but they do have that option. It does determine the percentage of risk, so your premiums could be based off of that as well. So if you do have a dispute in anything in Ohio, it's all done through the courts. So if you think I'm not at fault 50%, I should be at fault 10%. None. It's their fault. They did it the 100%. Well, there's no one to fix that. You have to go to court. That has to be settled through them, and that's just costs that you could occur. However, your insurance company may opt to defend you. Typically, if someone's suing you because of an accident, your insurance will instantly kick in and assign you a lawyer, pay most of the fees, if not all of the fees, usually all. But in the other situation where you're fighting it and you're saying, well, I don't think I was at fault, they can say no, because they usually determine the fault based on their knowledge and their experience of 30 years of doing this and seeing this. We fought this in court, we fought that in court. They can pretty well determine whether it's a risk they should take to do. But you got to keep in mind that could be $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. They might as well just pay out the claim half the time, right? That's one of the negatives that I think a lot of people are going to see in the insurance industry, but they have to determine that based on the risk. Is it worth spending $30,000 to save this guy from a $50 ticket and to save him $150 on insurance for 3 years? I mean, it's at the end of the day, it sucks for you. I'm sorry, I apologize, but I don't know anyone in their right mind that owns a business. If you owned the ice cream shop, would you pay $30,000 to save somebody $500 a year? Probably not. It's going to close your business down, right? Will it close the insurance industry down? No. But if they did that with everybody, absolutely. They just couldn't handle that. Then you wouldn't have insurance at the end of the day. Anyways, guys, I hope this helped. This was a little bit shorter because Ohio's an easy state to determine. There's not a whole lot of risk. The one thing I do want to go through is what I personally recommend as far as coverage. Now, I'm not telling you should go do this. There is an insurance video I made that is telling you, explaining what coverages you should carry based off an income, and that's how you should base it. So if you have a larger income, you should, typically max out your coverages, maybe doing an umbrella of $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, things like that. Get with your agent if you want to get determination on what type of risk you should take. I'll tell you right up front, the majority of the people I work with is they carry $250,000 per person if they hurt somebody, $500,000 per accident, typically $100,000 for property damage, although it's only a few dollars more if you want to bump that up. So a lot of them will do like $250,000 for property damage if the company offers it. Not all companies do. And then they'll carry everything the same. Uninsured motorist, $250,000 a person, $500,000 per accident. They'll take Medpay. They'll max that out. They'll do $25,000, $50,000 in Medpay, or they'll have their own and they don't want it at all. So it's kind of determined. Maybe $5,000 if somebody tripped out of your car and they got hurt. So there's a little bit of coverage for Timmy if he gets injured in the car, right? So they'll carry those coverages. That's really typically what I get. If you're going to do road service or towing, we typically do like AAA memberships. That's usually a common thing. I hope you guys liked the video. Let me know what you think. Is there any coverages you specifically wanted to cover in Ohio? I know I didn't talk a whole lot about like glass coverage and full glass and all that stuff. That's like the little extra things that you can get. I didn't go in depth of the towing and road service and OEM parts and all that other. Like there's a lot of little things in each policy that you can get. And those are like little add-ons and quirks and stuff to try to earn your business. So if you have a specific car, maybe those are questions to ask. Anyways, I'll put some links in the bottom here. So if you guys are interested in getting quotes and things like that, if you have questions or suggestions, definitely let me know. Don't forget to drive safe, and I will see you guys in the next one.